Emily sat alone at the corner table of the softly lit café, her manicured fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup as the clock ticked away the minutes of an evening she had pinned her hopes on, and the longer she sat there, the more those hopes seemed to crumble. She had arrived promptly at 7, dressed carefully in a navy dress that made her hazel eyes appear brighter, her hair falling in soft waves as if she had spent hours perfecting it, though in truth she had fussed over it for too long in her small apartment mirror, wondering if she was being silly for feeling nervous about a blind date at all. Her best friend Claire had insisted she give this man a chance, painting him as reliable, kind, and perhaps even the answer to Emily's quiet longing for companionship after years of disappointment. Yet, as the café's atmosphere buzzed with chatter and the clinking of cutlery, Emily found herself glancing too often at the entrance, her heart lifting each time the door opened only to drop again when it wasn't him. By the time an hour had passed, she had sipped through 2 refills of lukewarm coffee, ignored the waiter's polite offers to clear her untouched salad, and fought the rising tide of humiliation, that familiar voice in her head whispering that maybe she wasn't worth showing up for. She tried to steady herself with logic, perhaps traffic, perhaps a dead phone, but deep down she felt the old sting of being overlooked, of waiting for someone who never truly valued her. Memories of her ex resurfaced, for years wasted on a man who had broken her trust with lies, who had made her swear she would never again wait around for anyone. Yet here she was, 33 and alone at a table set for 2, holding on to the fragile thread of hope that she hadn't been foolish to come. Just as she finally pushed her chair back, preparing to leave and salvage what remained of her dignity, the bell over the café door chimed. A tall man entered, his broad shoulders cutting a striking figure, his sandy blonde hair slightly mussed as though he had rushed to get here, and when his eyes scanned the café before locking onto hers, Emily felt her breath catch in her throat. For an instant, she told herself it must be her blind date, late but real after all, yet as he walked toward her with a familiar half-smile tugging at his lips, recognition struck her like a thunderclap. This was no stranger, this was Daniel Carter, her college sweetheart, the man she hadn't seen in 12 years, the man she had once believed she would marry, the man she had lost and tried so hard to forget. Emily's chest tightened as Daniel stopped at her table, his presence stirring a storm of emotions she thought she had buried long ago, and when he spoke her name, his voice deeper and steadier than she remembered, she felt herself teetering between disbelief and anger. She forced a breathless, almost sharp whisper, "Daniel, what are you doing here?" And for a moment, he just looked at her with an expression that blended relief, hesitation, and something almost tender, before pulling out the chair across from her and lowering himself into it as though he had every right to be there. "I think," he said quietly, "I'm your blind date," and Emily blinked, her mind racing to reconcile the absurdity of his words with the reality before her. Claire had told her so little, just his age, profession, and that he was kind, but had left out the detail of a name, and Emily had been too nervous, too trusting, to demand a photograph, so it hadn't even occurred to her that fate could twist like this, dragging a ghost from her past into the present. She stiffened, folding her arms, trying to shield herself from the sudden ache in her chest, because sitting before her wasn't just a man from long ago, but the man she had once planned a future with, the man whose departure had carved an emptiness inside her that years had not quite filled. "This can't be happening," she murmured, half to herself, but Daniel leaned in slightly, his eyes intent. "I didn't know it was you either, not at first," he said, his voice tinged with both apology and longing. "But when I saw your name on the setup profile, I hoped. I thought, maybe this is my chance to make things right." His words stung, reopening wounds she had spent years stitching shut, and she wanted to laugh at the irony of him waltzing back into her life under the guise of a blind date, but all she managed was a tense, bitter edge. "You had your chance 12 years ago, Daniel. You left." His face fell, shadowed by regret, but he held her gaze as though he refused to let her dismiss him so easily. "I left because I thought it was the right thing, Em," he said earnestly, using the old nickname that made her heart twist in spite of herself. "That job, that opportunity, I thought if I built a career first, I could come back for you, give us the life we dreamed about. But then the calls stopped, the letters went unanswered, and I thought you'd moved on." Emily's. The waiter arrived with a polite smile, setting down 2 glasses of water and offering menus neither of them truly looked at, the tension between them thick enough to drown out the clinking cutlery and soft chatter that filled the café, and as soon as he left, Emily leaned back in her chair, folding her arms as if to create a shield between them, while Daniel leaned forward, eyes fixed on her with the intensity of a man who had rehearsed this moment for years. "Emily," he began, voice low but steady, "I never stopped thinking about you, not once in all these years, and I know that probably sounds like some tired line, but it's the truth." When Claire described her friend, brilliant, kind, passionate about her work, I didn't realize she meant you, but when I found out, it felt like fate was giving me a second chance I never thought I'd get. Emily let out a short, incredulous laugh, bitterness curling at the edges of her words as she shot back, "Fate? You mean the fate where you left me waiting, confused, and broken while you built your life somewhere else?" The sting of her words hung in the air, but Daniel didn't flinch. Instead, he looked down briefly, as if gathering strength, then lifted his gaze to hers again. "I didn't leave because I didn't love you," he said softly, "I left because I thought I loved you too much to drag you into uncertainty. That job offer, Emily, it was the kind of opportunity architects dream about, and I thought if I took it, established myself, then came back, I could give you everything we talked about. But when I tried reaching out, when my calls went unanswered, when letters came back without replies, I thought you had moved on, and I couldn't bring myself to push further if you didn't want me anymore." Emily's throat tightened, confusion swirling with anger, because his version of the past didn't align with the pain she remembered. She remembered endless nights staring at her phone, waiting for a call that never came, checking her mailbox and finding it empty, until eventually she had forced herself to stop waiting, convinced he had forgotten her as easily as others had. "You think I didn't wait?" she whispered, her voice breaking despite her effort to sound strong. "I waited for months, Daniel. Months. But nothing came. Do you know how humiliating it was to finally accept that you had chosen a career over me?" His expression cracked, pain flashing across his features. "I wrote to you, Emily," he said urgently. "So many letters. I even came back once at Christmas, went to your parents' house, but they told me you were gone. I thought you didn't want to see me." Emily's mind reeled, her heart pounding in her chest as she realized there had been gaps in the story, missing pieces that neither of them had known. Had her parents said that to protect her, believing she had moved on, or had the letters somehow been lost? The idea that their breakup might have been less about choice and more about crossed wires made her feel dizzy, and yet a part of her still bristled, because even if misunderstandings had played a role, the fact remained, he had left, and she had been the one to pick up the pieces of her shattered heart. For the first time that night, she didn't know whether to hate him for reopening the wound or to thank fate for placing him back in front of her. For a long moment, Emily sat in silence, her fingers tightening around the cool glass of water as though it could anchor her against the tide of emotions threatening to sweep her away, and across the table, Daniel watched her with that same patient intensity she remembered from their youth, the kind that once made her believe he would wait for her through anything, and now, as the past collided with the present, she found herself torn between old wounds and the fragile hope stirring in her chest. "Do you know what it was like to piece myself back together after you left?" she asked finally, her voice trembling, not with weakness but with the weight of memories she had carried for years, and Daniel's face softened, guilt flickering across his eyes as he leaned closer. "I can only imagine, Em," he said quietly, "and if I could go back and change it, if I could fight harder, explain better, I would, but I can't undo the past. I can only tell you that I'm here now, and I don't want to waste another chance if you'll let me try." His words pierced through her defenses, but Emily shook her head slightly, struggling to cling to her rational side, because the logical part of her screamed that people didn't change, that time and distance had carved too deep a canyon between them, and yet, as she searched his face, she didn't see the careless boy who had once chosen ambition over her. She saw a man who had weathered storms of his own, who carried regrets like scars, who was bearing his vulnerability without asking for forgiveness but offering it. The air around them seemed to shift, and for the first time that evening, Emily allowed herself to wonder if this blind date wasn't a cruel twist of fate but perhaps a gentle nudge from the universe, a reminder that sometimes love finds its way back, even if through the most unexpected doors. She took a slow breath, her voice steadier now, though her heart still pounded. I don't know if I can just forget everything, Daniel. The hurt, the silence, the years apart, they don't disappear just because you showed up tonight. He nodded, not flinching, not pressing, simply listening in the way she always wished he had. I'm not asking you to forget, he said firmly. I'm asking for the chance to prove that I've learned, that I won't walk away again, that if you'll let me, I'll stand beside you the way I should have all those years ago. The sincerity in his tone cracked something inside her, loosening the bitterness she had clung to for so long, and though fear still lingered, so too did the undeniable truth that her heart, despite everything, still recognized him, still beat a little faster in his presence. Finally, Emily allowed the faintest smile to curve her lips, a fragile but genuine bridge across the chasm of the past. One chance, Daniel, she whispered, her voice carrying both warning and promise. Don't make me regret it. Relief washed over his features, and for the first time that night, the heaviness lifted, replaced by something lighter, warmer, as though maybe, just maybe, two people who had once lost each other could find their way back again.